a handful of YA Fairyloot books that I've been just constantly hearing people talk about recently.
Why are you making me out to be a fool on the internet?
And there were multiple points throughout this book that I definitely had to suspend my belief. Today is not an I Love Sunday kind of Sundays. Today is not the one. But I've racked up like 16 hours of workout over the last 30 days. Good evening, guys. Welcome to what is potentially going to be our final subscription box vlog for November. We'll see. It depends how this one goes really, but I may be able to squeeze one more in. We'll just see. We'll see what the direction of this one is going to be first. But just a little bit of a recap. Throughout the month of November, I have been almost exclusively reading books that I have acquired from subscription boxes over the years. And I mean, there's a lot of them. And while I like to read a little bit more chaotically these days, a little bit more mood oriented, I do need a little bit of direction. So at the beginning of every vlog, I have been pulling a prompt out of this jar, which will choose the direction that the vlog takes. I am nervous. I also have Mixtapeathon sprints, which is a readathon that I'm co-hosting that started on the 16th and ends on the 29th. I have sprints starting with Leanne and Beth in 20 minutes, and I have just this second wrapped up last week's vlog, so I have no idea what I'm going to be reading. But let's see what our prompt is going to be. I'm actually just going to switch hands because my ring keeps catching on the lip of the jar and it's really annoying. I can't tell how many I have here. Is this? No, that's 2. We'll go with this one. I'm scared. YA Fairyloot. Okay, the problem that I feel like I'm gonna have with this one is trying to differentiate or remember which ones are YA and which ones are adult. I do have, I think, all of the like spoiler cards inside them, so when I open them up, I'll know. But off the top of my head, I feel like this is gonna be hard, but I don't even know what Mixtapeathon prompts I'm looking for next. We'll see. We'll go look. There are a handful of YA Fairyloot books that I've been just constantly hearing people talk about recently, and I want to prioritize them for a number of reasons, because I want to see if like I also enjoy them, but also because the sales for the sequels are coming up or have come up recently, and I want to know if I would like to try and get my hands on one of these sequels. Like, if it's going to be a book that I love, I don't want to miss it. But I'm also not going to be going around buying sequels to books that I haven't read. And one that I think is coming up in January that I definitely wanted to prioritize, one that I've heard, I don't think I've heard a single bad review for this book, but that is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. And this is like a very distinctive, like custom edition compared to the standard. So if I like this, I definitely want to get my hands on the Fairyloot sequel. So this one is set in a war between feuding gods, and it's like the 2 main characters work for a newspaper. I think the female main character's brother has been drafted in this war between the gods, and so she has been sending him letters. However, the letters have not been arriving and have instead been delivered to her rival at the paper. I know that this one is a heavily romantic one, which I mean, I'm always down for some fantasy romance, and I feel like it has a World War II kind of aesthetic. I don't know whether this war between the gods is kind of like a stand-in for a real world kind of war, but it definitely has like the, I would say, 1940s 50s aesthetic with the way that the characters seem to be dressed. It also mentions like typewriters, and I'm excited to see how fantasy is woven in here as well if we take out all of the bits. The end pages are really beautiful on here, also feeding into that kind of 1940s aesthetic, and a really pretty naked hardcover. This is actually shorter than I thought it was as well. With 367 pages, I thought it was going to be over 400, so hopefully I'll be able to get through a decent chunk of this evening so I can bring you guys my initial thoughts. But I'm so excited to get into this one and kind of see what all the fuss is about, because at the minute I've heard a lot of glowing reviews, but I haven't really heard any in-depth like specifics of why people love this one.
Afternoon on a train, I only took it because it started to rain. Afternoon in the fall, this weather always makes me think about it
Good evening, guys. I am doing a overwhelm. I'm feeling very defeated this evening. It is just about 9 p.m. and I've pretty much just finished working through my to-do list for today. I am going to London next week. I booked an impromptu trip to London because I'm going to my first ever in-person Peloton class for the tour that they're doing in London, which I'm excited about. But because it wasn't planned, I planned my life like very far in advance and get like the skeleton of my months together way before they roll around. So this has kind of thrown me through a loop. Me and Curtis also had a couple of things that we were going to this month, and I've just really overextended myself, and I work the best under pressure until it gets too much. The second the tiniest thing tips my to-do list over the edge, like I shut down and there is no more productivity, and that is pretty much the place where I'm at. And I have been struggling this week because I'm like either on it, like I feel like I'm mentally active all of the time, and I'm pretty much like working all day and then doing something every evening as well. And I'm not saying everything I have to do is the most difficult stuff in the world, like a lot of it is social events, going to London, seeing friends. It's just a lot. Like I like to have time with no plans, even if it's just like an evening, to decompress and kind of like re-energize a little bit. And I'm just feeling a lot right now. So I've just finished outlining the video that I'm gonna film tomorrow, and I'm gonna go get in the bath because that really helps me to reset. Just like the self-care allows me to mentally reset really. So I am 100 pages into, I nearly called it Ruthless Vows, I'm sure that's book 2, Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, and I'm enjoying it so far. It is a little bit jarring though, because it is like, it's more, I guess, fantastical than I expected, because I knew we had this World War II setting, but it's almost like if you place London in the middle of a fantasy world. Like it's high fantasy, the city is called Oath, there's this war between two gods, so one god that was buried under the earth, there's like 5 gods buried, and one kind of woke up one day and declared war on another one, and the other one they say is a siren. I'm not sure if she is, but they say that she's like calling people to war to fight for her, and the main character's brother is one of these people. So she kind of promises him that she's going to look after her mother and stay in school, and when her brother leaves and they hear nothing from him, his mother starts to drink a lot, she loses her job, and this forces our main character to drop out of school and find a job to support her family. And she gets a job at this paper where she's competing with a very rich, very privileged guy for the title of columnist. So those two hate each other. It's more, not even miscommunication. There's not really any genuine hate there. Like she kind of assumes that he looks down on her, and he doesn't really, although he is from this position of privilege where he doesn't realize he's being a bit of a douche most of the time. So it's jarring because it is very much like a contemporary plot in terms of her brother's gone to war and she has a job to kind of support her family, while all of this other stuff is going on in the background. Now, where I'm at, I'm pretty much exactly 100 pages in, and we've just got to part 2 where I think it's going to get more fantastical because the equilibrium has definitely shifted and we're actually heading to a different part of the world where I feel like more of this fantasy is going to come in. But it's just so weird because it is kind of like World War II London in the middle of a fantasy world where all of the conflict is fantastical. So I'm having a decent time with it. I'm not like super invested in it or anything right now, but I am hoping that is going to turn around. So I'm going to go get in the bath, and my aim is to get to page 200 tonight so that I kind of stay on track and just take a moment to recenter myself before I get up in the morning and get back at it. I do want to show you Brie though. I'm convinced a lot of the time that she is actually a demonic entity because she sleeps with her eyes open. It freaks me out. Oh, she's just like fully opened her eyes now. Y'all are gonna have to take my word for it, but the way that she always knows when a camera is pointing at her, even if she's asleep, isn't it? She's doing it again. She's doing it again. Why are you making me out to be a fool on the internet? There she goes. Possession is underway. Trust me to be the one with the demonic dog. I did also forget to say that one of the reasons why I'm feeling so meh today is because we were supposed to be going to an open day for a wedding venue tonight, and we've had to cancel. One, because I'm just generally like overwhelmed and like I'm literally on my last nerve. I could snap at any minute. And Curtis, generally like his workload increases a lot coming up to Christmas. But yeah, we had to cancel, and it's really annoying because like I didn't want to go. It was the best decision that we could have made. all things considered, to cancel. Curtis's car has been having issues as well, so he's had it in the garage all day for diagnostics, and it wasn't back at the time that we would have to leave to make it to this open day. But I cannot stand breaking plans, even though the plans are completely made by me. Like, I didn't even RSVP to this event because I wasn't sure how I was going to feel today, knowing that I have been feeling overwhelmed over the last week or so. So it wasn't even a big deal that we cancelled. It's just something that I was in my brain that was happening, and now it's not happening. I'm just really stressed about it, which is not helpful. It's not helping my situation at all, because the cancelling of the event should have lightened my load, made me feel better, but I feel worse. I feel like I've failed, which is why I feel defeated. And I know it's ridiculous, it's just my brain, but that's what I'm dealing with mentally right now. I don't know why I'm rambling to you guys about this. I know I don't normally, but I thought I'd just take a moment, fill you in on how I've been feeling, and I'm gonna get in the bath and get back to my book now. Otherwise, those pages are not gonna get read. I'm gonna fall behind on this vlog, and I'm gonna be even stressier.
Our love in the dark. I don't know where she's going. I don't even know her name. I don't know if her life has been a breeze or a hurricane.
I just got home. I nipped out for 30 minutes. I filmed the videos that I've been procrastinating on, and then I nipped out, and now I'm going to get on with editing the one that I've been procrastinating on, because the other one isn't an issue. It's just I had to film the one I've been procrastinating on first, which was one of the main reasons why I was getting so overwhelmed. It's so annoying because a lot of the times I get just stuck on one thing, and I will prolong that thing as long as possible, but when it's done, like, I feel so much better. But I also have read a big chunk of this, and I'm getting more into it now. I only have just over 100 pages left, so the plan is to finish it tonight after I have done my workout. But I'm 248 pages into this now, and I'm enjoying it more. The interesting thing about this is that it reads very much like a war romance, and I like historical fantasy, but there's some eras historically, like just in general, whether it was historical fiction, which typically I don't even read because I don't love it, but when it comes to historical fantasies, they're not eras that I gravitate towards either. So it's like anything to do with like World War I or World War II, not really my thing. Don't love the Victorian era either. There are others, but I feel like those are the main two that are just never a draw for me, and I know like some people love those particular eras, but for me it's a no. So this is interesting because it's like a blend between a high fantasy and a war romance, and if it was a war romance I wouldn't like it, and if it was a high fantasy I don't feel like there's enough of it for me to like it for that either. But with the two together, while I do still feel like it's jarring, because it's almost like the wardrobe in Narnia turned inside out and London ended up in Narnia, surrounded by all of this magical stuff, and I'm definitely finding that jarring, but there's something about it that I really like. And I think it's because while the structure of the plot itself is not necessarily the most ingenious, unique thing, the combination of this like war aesthetic and war plot and the warring gods with the high fantasy elements, but it's still very much feeling war era, it's really kind of working. I'm interested to see how this series is going to progress. I know nothing about the sequel. I assume it's a direct continuation. I'm also thinking that potentially the sequels are going to get a little bit more fantastical, but something that I'm probably enjoying the most about this book is the atmosphere, the feeling of sadness, I want to say. Like, I was really sad throughout the beginning of this, reading about like Iris and her brother, and how her brother leaving to go to war had a knock-on effect with her family that ended up with some other like pretty terrible things happening to her, and how that constantly affects her. And then you have Roman, who yes has come from a life of privilege, but we all know privileged people have problems too, and it's the classic story of his father wants to like essentially engineer his life, and everything his father has laid out for him he doesn't want. And I feel like the backdrop of this World War II-esque setting really accentuates the characters' mutual sadness, like mutual longing for a life that they're not currently living. I will say though that I think it's an interesting choice to make this very World War II-esque, because I think that something that having it at least slightly influenced by that era has done is made the realities of war and the harshness of war seem a lot more real. And because of the YA
of this. I don't think it goes as far in the war elements as it necessarily should. Like, while it says like, oh, all of these people are in the hospital, like they're casualties of war, like a lot of them are gonna die, I feel like it softens that a little bit, potentially because it's YA, while the actual having it set almost reminiscent of World War II or World War I makes that hit a little bit harder. But then it feels like Rebecca Ross has also like shied away from that. Like, I feel like I would lean into that maybe. It's an interesting book for sure, and I am definitely enjoying it. Some parts, especially with this being heavily romantic, feel like reading a teenager's text messages, which, I mean, you know what, it's the equivalent of that, because these guys, they don't have technology, so they're writing each other letters on typewriters that are turning a little bit more romantic as the story progresses. So I'm having a good time with it. I can't say I'm blown away so far. I feel like I want a little bit more plot. I want a little bit more from this fantasy world, and like I said, if this series goes the way that I would maybe expect it to, I feel like the high fantasy plotline is going to step in a lot more in the sequel, and I'm assuming that the end, like the culmination of this book, is going to kind of lead into that. But so far so good, I guess. I am hoping, my plan is to finish it tonight, so if that does happen, I'll probably check in with you tomorrow with my final thoughts.
I don't know if he loves her or if loving him is pain, but I do know that our fates have intertwined.
Hey! I'm so glad it's Friday. This week has been so shambolic. Not that it's going to get any less shambolic throughout the weekend, but we're nearly there, guys. We're nearly there, and I'm nearly there with the video, the GSFF video I was procrastinating on. I have uploaded it. I just need to proof it, and then that is done. And I have my December TBR that I want to get edited at some point today. I am starting Patreon sprints in 10 minutes, but we're going to do more productivity sprints. But I do also want to get some reading done in there as well, so I think I'm going to like alternate between the two. I had a headache from yesterday early evening, like late afternoon, early evening, that kind of eased off while I was working out, which is surprising because normally that makes my headaches worse. And then it started to build throughout the evening until by the time I was trying to go to sleep, it was pretty intense. When I woke up this morning, it was still there, so I slept in for like an extra hour than I usually would and woke up and it was still there. But I've taken some paracetamol and had coffee, and it seems to have eased up for now, but I feel like my soul and my appearance is still reflecting that monster headache that ruined my life for a good 12 hours there. I did though manage to finish Divine Rivals last night by Rebecca Ross, which I should probably put the dust jacket back on for now. I'm really quite sad about the end of this one because I feel like the end of this book really ruined this one for me. I had issues with it throughout. Like, I was enjoying it, and I was more enjoying the juxtaposition, as I mentioned, of this wartime like period romance alongside this high fantasy plot, or in a high fantasy world, because this really does focus on the romance more than anything else. But there was a lot in here that was very convenient. Like, anything to do with the plot was so inconvenient. Like, you lose an item, the one person that you can expect to find that item is the one that finds it, and they don't even struggle. They literally just walk past it and scoop it up. So there was a lot of conveniences and also a lot of info dumping. Like, whenever anybody needed an answer, there was somebody there to just like regurgitate it to them, and I noticed that throughout. But there was like a certain charm to this book. There is a certain charm to this book that I really enjoyed. The romance in itself is super dramatic, and there were multiple points throughout this book, both with the romance and with the conveniences in the plot, that I definitely had to suspend my belief. But like I said, it had a certain charm and I was really enjoying it until we got to the end. And when I say the end, I'm talking like the last 30 pages. Took this book in a direction, and I was kind of right. It does escalate the high fantasy plot a little bit, but it just felt so rushed that all of that stuff was squashed into 30 pages to set this up for book 2. Now, it is a duology, so there is only one more, and I have read the synopsis of book 2, so I see how the theme of book 2 is kind of going to mirror book 1, but it just seemed like I don't know, like my reaction to reading the synopsis, like finishing this book and reading the synopsis for book 2 was like, oh, of course that's what's gonna happen. I ended up giving it 3 stars. It was set up to be a low 4 up until we got to the end, and it's just the conveniences were too convenient at that point. The way everything kind of just falls into place is just, it's a little bit too much for me. So I did enjoy it, and it does have that certain charm. I was
I find it really interesting how Rebecca Ross has paired this like World War II era romance and like World War II era society in a high fantasy world. At the minute, I'm not sure if I want to continue and read Ruthless Vows now that it's turned out to be a 3-star read for me, but I think the sale for book 2, the Fairyloot sale, is in January, so I definitely have some time to kind of like figure that out. But I don't know. I don't, because it was convenient all the way through, so I don't know why it was the very end that tipped me over the edge. I guess I just don't really like the direction that I feel that book 2 is going after everything else we had in this book. That book is mainly romance focused as well, as opposed to fantasy. So for my next book, I think we're going to be going with a little bit of like a Fairyloot's greatest hits kind of theme. All of these books have been released or included in boxes in the last just over a year, and they're the ones that like I've only really heard good things about. And I have heard people like kind of DNF this book or not love this book, but of all of the Fairyloot books, because you know, like with subscription box books, some of them they're in a subscription box, you never hear them mentioned again, and then some of them just keep popping up over and over and over. So it's the ones that are still circulating, that people are still talking about and I'm still hearing a lot about, are the ones that I'm planning on reading for this video. So the next one is a little bit longer than Divine Rivals, and it is Belladonna by Adeline Grace. So this one I know is gothic, and it's following a girl who in the prologue, like, she is a baby and everybody dies in her house, and it's like they're throwing a party or a ball and everybody's poisoned and dies, and death comes to escort them to like the next life, but the baby, our main character who is called Signa, cannot be killed. So throughout the years as she's growing up, she kind of notices this, and I don't really know what her purpose is at this point, but where I'm at 14 pages in, she's trying to kill death. I'm kind of excited about this because I do love me a gothic romance. But I realised, because Waterstones are doing double and triple points today, I went on and I looked up Foxglove because I've missed the Fairyloot sale for the sequel of this. So I was like, in case I like it, is there a Waterstones edition? There's a signed edition. But I also realised / remembered that Adeline Grace is the author of, is it All the Stars and Teeth? Which is a book that I read. I had the Illumicrate edition of that one, I think, and I gave it 2 stars. It felt like a little bit of a Moana ripoff from what I remember, and I just found it completely unengaging and like a very forgettable story. So now I'm a little bit more cautious, but I do love me, it doesn't say in the beginning of this, but I do love me a gothic story, so hopefully this one will be a hit. It's also, like I said, it's a little bit longer than Divine Rivals. It's just over 400 pages, but the text in here is massive, so I do imagine it'll be like a pretty quick one. The work week is finally over. I made it. Oh my god, how echoey does it sound? What have I moved? Is that literally just because of the beanbag? Oh my god. We've had a little bit of a rearrange in this corner because it's time to put the Christmas tree up. I'm actually really excited. I normally would never do this before December 1st, but we're going to London on the 29th of November and we're not back until the 4th. So if it's a choice of putting it up like now or on the 5th, I'm gonna go with now, because for some reason I'm in the Christmas mood this year. So this will be probably the majority of my Friday night, but I'm so excited for when it's done because I love it when the Christmas tree is up. I feel like it really just like completes the room.
Christmas carols down the street, snowflakes on the graceful trees, underneath the mistletoe, my teardrops melt the snow. Baby, won't you please come home? Been too long, you've gotta know. So much joy that we'll have, gonna share the gift of love. Will you be here on Christmas Eve? Here on Christmas Day with no one else I'd rather be. Keep me warm this holiday. Will you be here on Christmas Eve? Here on Christmas Day with no one else I'd rather be. Keep me warm bells are ringing joyful chimes. Everyone's living festive times, but I sing all alone. Our house is not a home. Counting days and counting weeks till we're dancing cheek to cheek. We simply have a ball, swaying at the Christmas hall. Will you be here on Christmas Eve? Here on Christmas Day with no one else.
Good morning. I need lip balm. I'm crusty. So I am ready for my hair appointment, which is at 9:30. I have to leave in 15 minutes. Today, I have no idea how long I'm going to be there because I normally have an appointment like every 2 months to top up my colour and then every 3 months for my keratin treatment. But we're doing it like they just aligned. So we're doing it all today, which means that I'm going to be there for, I would say, a minimum of 6 hours. I don't expect to be home before like 4 p.m. today, but I truly have no idea. It could be longer, it could be less. I think she's pretty much just got me in for the entire day. We'll be taking my book with me. Hopefully I have enough of it to last the entire hair appointment. I mean, I am friends with my hairdresser, so we spend most of the time talking. I don't actually read too much when I'm getting my hair done, but I am a considerable amount of the way through Belladonna. I'm 240 pages into it, so I have like 165 pages left. And I am very pleasantly surprised by this. We've literally just talked about expectation as well. And I'd seen a couple of people say they DNF'd this because they couldn't get into it. It felt very YA, they weren't enjoying it. And also, I remembered when I was going through Goodreads, not Goodreads, Waterstones, that I had read a book by Adeline Grace before and I didn't like it. So maybe because I went into this with those expectations, I'm enjoying it a little bit more. It did take me a while to get in. I would say the first 100 pages or so I wasn't super vibing with, but since I've got past that, I'm actually finding this pretty compelling. So the plot of this is that we have a girl whose entire, well, not her entire family, I'm not really sure what happened to her father, but her mother was at a party with her when she was a baby and everybody at this party dies. So since then she's been passed from relative to relative, and her first one was her grandmother who loved her, but obviously her grandmother was getting on a bit and she did eventually pass away. And then since then she's just been moving through increasingly awful people who want her for her inheritance, because when she turns 20 she will be able to access her estate and the people that have been looking after her will get a cut of that. So she's had a pretty rough life up until now. People who have just pretty much locked her away and done the bare minimum so that they can eventually claim her estate, and all of these people have died. She does have a relationship with death. She can see death, she can communicate with death, and she can also harness some of death's powers. So she really resents him for the life that she's had. And after her latest guardian has died, she is taken to, I think it's called Thorngrove, which is where it's one of her, like, I guess like a distant cousin maybe. She's taken to the estate of her distant cousin's husband. Her cousin has actually, I think she's her cousin, her relative has actually passed away, and the family are dealing with the aftermath of this, especially as their daughter, like the only female child that they have, is now sick with the same illness that her mother died from. So Signa arrives here and she only actually has 6 months until she claims her inheritance, so she's just trying to make it through that 6 months. But she arrives at this place, she's actually looked after. The family are distant because they're grieving, but she's given like a whole new wardrobe, she's given rooms, she's fed, and she decides that she actually likes this family and would like to help them. So she is trying to solve not the riddle, I guess, but she's trying to find out what killed her relative and also what ails the daughter, so that she can save the daughter and save this branch of her family before she's then passed off to the next guardian, because these ones actually don't want anything from her. They have plenty of their own money, so they're literally just looking after her because they feel it's the right thing to do. At this time as well, she's also finally like making her introduction into society, so there's all of that kind of stuff, and I really like it. I really like the atmosphere. I am a sucker for a gothic story. This is a gothic romance, I think would be the best way to categorize it. I will say it
has some pretty creepy elements because the main character with having a relationship to death also can see spirits, and there's a variety of spirits, you know. Some people pass away peacefully but just want to hang around and chill. Some people died pretty violently, and if they died pretty violently then they appear in that kind of state of distress. And some of the spirits, one spirit in particular that Signa interacts with, she's pretty scary. So we do have slight horror elements in here as well, I would say. It is a very quick read. It is a very easy read. Considering it does have a romance plot, I feel like something has to happen in this because there's like more than one romance going on or more than one love interest, but I don't feel like it's necessarily going to come down to a love triangle. But the romance is actually not really interesting me. Like, it's fine. There's a handsome guy and she kind of thinks about him sometimes, but it's not, because like with Divine Rivals, like the romance is super present and also like super dramatic, and I did kind of like it, you know, like it had a charm. This one, it's the romance that's like falling into the background for me, and I'm not too interested in it, which is fine because I'm enjoying the actual plot, the atmosphere and the setting of this. It's just surprising. So yes, all good so far. I'm genuinely surprised because I thought out of this video this would be the one that I really did like the least, but so far so good. Good morning guys, I just got up. It's like 7:45ish and today is not an I Love Sunday kind of Sunday. Today is not the one. But last night I did finish Belladonna by Adeline Grace, and then I went to play some Fortnite with my pals and went to bed. So I do need to bring you my final thoughts on that book, but I just wanted to pop in now and let you guys know that I'm about to start our final book for this vlog, which is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. This is once again a gothic one. This is from the October 2022 Sell Your Soul box. Once again, heard amazing things about it, which is why I'm reading it, and the main character has a monster that lives in her head with her. That is all I know. I did technically start it last night. I read one chapter in bed, but I'm only 15 pages in and I can tell you less than nothing at this point. So I'm gonna read for about an hour, I think, just over an hour, while I wake up, have coffee, and then I'm gonna get ready for the day, and I will come and let you guys know what I thought about Belladonna. Like they do, you know.
Almost at the downtown store.
Show no
I'm already late, but I
There we go.
wanna get up. Outside the city's painted gray.
So I am ready to head out once again. It is 9:50, so we should be leaving in about 10 minutes, but it doesn't matter if we're a couple of minutes late. Today we are going to a wedding show in Leeds. I believe it's called the Unwedding Show, and it's very much like the antithesis of the conventional wedding. It's about doing a wedding the way that you want to do it. There's lots of like alternative and non-conventional suppliers there. So we thought we'd go have a look around, see what's what. I was looking at some of the vendors. I'm quite excited for this one, which I very much flip-flop between two moods, and that's looking into things and being like getting slightly excited about the possibility of it and getting really stressed at the thought of it and having like panic cries. So can you imagine if we actually decide to go ahead and do like not a traditional wedding, because that's not very me and it's not very us, but like a standard like fancy venue, fancy dress, big do kind of wedding. Can you imagine what I'm gonna be like if we do that, if I'm like this now, when it's not even a thing, it's just maybe a possibility of a thing. But we are gonna be heading out very, very soon. Leeds is like an hour away, so it's not ridiculously far. But last night I did finish Last night I finished Belladonna by Adeline Grace, and you know what? I really liked this one. I'm shocked. I really did think that of the three that I was going to be reading for this video, that this is the one that would potentially fall flat for me, just because I had heard people not like it because of the YA-ness of it, and I didn't really feel that. I don't know whether it's because I kind of went into it with those expectations, but I thought that it was decent. The atmosphere was not the like thickest, most cutting gothic atmosphere I've ever read, but I think it did the job. It was slightly spooky. We had some slight real creepy horror elements in there quite near the beginning. Actually, they kind of tapered off a little bit. We also had a romance, which still I think throughout this book remained my least favorite aspect of this book, but I did warm to it. And it's not that I didn't like it, it's just I didn't feel the romance. I wasn't swept away by the romance in here, but I did like it. It has not quite a murder mystery plotline, because the whole point is to stop people from dying. But it has a mystery plot in here, which is something I typically don't like, but it didn't have that classic murder mystery format, so I did enjoy it a little bit more. We had elements of magic. There is magic in here. Our main character Signa has the same powers of death, and she's kind of learning what that means and learning to control them as the book goes on. And I think that the plot was strong, the atmosphere was good, and I liked the main characters. I also did not guess who was responsible for everything going on in here, and that is something that I usually do. And I will say, like, I read 100 pages of this in the salon where like I was tuning out other things, which I can do, but obviously if I'm reading in a silent room or a room with like some nice rainfall ambience, I concentrate a little bit better. So maybe it's that I wasn't, like, I was missing little bits of information, but I was surprised by the person who was responsible. I did have a couple of ideas, but I felt every time I had an idea, it was kind of thrown out of the window, or somebody else was like equally as suspicious. So this very much kept me gripped until the end. It didn't feel like 400 pages. Like I said, the text is pretty big, so that is partially responsible. I cannot get the Fairyloot edition of Hemlock. It's not called Hemlock. Why do I keep thinking it's called Hemlock? It's called Foxglove. I think it's because the Hannah Witten book, The Foxglove King, the sequel to that is the Hemlock something, I think. Is it? Is that right? Anyway, I can't get the Fairyloot sequel to this, which isn't the biggest deal in the world. This is the price you pay for not reading the books in time. I looked on eBay and there's one damaged one that people are bidding on, which isn't ideal. And then there's some for like £150, and I'm not paying more than like £30 for this. Like, I'm not paying more than cost for it, because realistically, do I need the Fairyloot edition? No, it's a 4-star book. It's not a 5-star as well. So I did look. There isn't a Waterstones edition of Foxglove, not Hemlock, but there is a signed edition. You can't order it online, but it is in stock in Leeds. So I'm gonna go pick that up today if we have time. We're planning on not being out too long. We're just pretty much going into Leeds, having a look around this show, nipping to Waterstones, and then potentially coming straight home. I do actually want to have a wander, especially now it's coming up to Christmas, get some Christmas gifts and stuff, but we are going to be in London next week for a couple of days, so I plan on doing a lot of that then. Today is not the day. Today I just want to do the damn thing and come home. So that's what I'm gonna do.
Here a vivid world is on display. The man behind me, he carries a suitcase, a custom cut suit, but shadows on his face. Was it just a bad day? Will he laugh when he gets home? Or did it all go astray? And now he sleeps alone. I don't know where he's going. I don't even know his name. I don't know if his life has been a breeze or a hurricane. I don't know if he's happy or if all he knows
Is it good?
is pain. But I do know that
Good evening. I am obviously back from Leeds now. The wedding show was really cool. It was really informative. We essentially went just to gather information, and there were quite a few really interesting vendors, photographers, etc. there who gave us that information that we needed. We also collected a lot of leaflets and flyers that had information, so I can follow everyone on Instagram if we wish to contact them in the future, and also like some pricing. So I feel like our next step is going to be to put together what we want ideally and see how much that's going to cost, see whether that's not only within our budget but justifiable, I feel, because weddings are a lot of money. And while our budget, like while we could have a budget that would be potentially enough to cover these things that we want, can we justify spending that much money on one day? You know, because it is one day and it like symbolizes a lot, but it is truly just one day and it's a lot of money. So that's our next step. But I did really enjoy being able to look around and like have all of those people in one place. But I have a small haul for you guys. It's not, there is a book in it, but it's not a book haul. But essentially I just picked up a couple of bits in Leeds and I thought I would show you, because I don't do this too often anymore. I also don't go shopping very often, if I'm being honest, but I don't think anything I got was on offer for Black Friday, so it's not even like I took advantage of sales. But I did get some Christmas presents. Some of those were involved in the sales. Obviously I can't show you those because sneaky bitches be coming here to get sneaky peeks at their Christmas presents. But I did pick up a couple of things for myself. The first thing I got from Asda, and I love Asda, okay? I love going to big Asda just generally for my food shopping, but I also love their homeware department. So I did see this, which Oh Hey Reflection I thought was really cool. It's just like a fortune teller mirror. It was cheap, okay? So it's not the best quality thing I've ever purchased in my life, but I thought it was pretty cool and very much my vibe, so I snatched that up. I also picked up, super boring, actually kind of exciting for me, I picked up some socks. And I'm not one for expensive socks, and these aren't the most expensive socks either. There's far pricier than this, but I'm like your pack of 6 socks for £3 from Primark kind of girl, because I'm gonna wear through them anyway. Where does it matter? Like, why does it matter where I got them from? But these are gym socks, these are sports socks, and they came in cool colors, and I wanted these specifically because I'm going to a Peloton class in London next week, so I wanted these to go with the gym set that I'll be wearing. Normally having nice looking socks when I'm working out isn't too much of an issue for me because I work out at home, but I have been wanting these for working out for a little while now, and this was a perfect excuse to get them. And then the last thing I got was the book that I said I was going for, which was of course Foxglove by Adeline Grace. I couldn't find the signed edition that they said was in stock in Leeds, and realistically, I've said this before, especially in my unboxing videos, signed things like the signature means very little to me. I can live without it, so I am living without it. I'm sad obviously because it's not the Fairyloot one. I don't have the sprayed edge or the dark cover. Those are the things that I care about, like the customizations. Signature, not a big deal, so I'm absolutely fine with this standard edition. I mean, I've gone out and bought this off the back of reading Belladonna as though I'm going to finish it, like read this straight away, which I'm absolutely not going to, but at least I have it now, so I could. And one of my priorities, I think I've mentioned, I don't know if in this vlog, but definitely in like last week's vlog, one of my priorities for December is going to be reading sequels. So amongst all of the other sequels I have to read, I've now added Foxglove to the mix. So I am 100 pages into One Dark Window. I'm enjoying it. I like the atmosphere in this one. I'm also, I think the love interest, I'm pretty sure he's going to be love interest, but he's called Raven, but it's R-A-V-Y-N, and I keep calling him Raven in my head. And every time I say it, I know it's not right, but I just can't stop. So I am aiming to get to page 200 today. The chapter ends on 201, so that's probably going to be my aim. Whether I make it or not is anybody's guess, because I'm already sleepy, and it feels like I've had a real long week. So I kind of want to unwind. If I only make it to like page 130-ish, not a massive deal. So yeah, we'll just see how much I want to read of this evening, but I'm having a good time with it so far.
One of those artists for me is Donna Summer. Like, I didn't get into her until much later in my life. And then I went through the catalog and I was like, obsessed.
I do this. Hello, this is a little bit wobbly because I'm carrying my whole tripod and camera through, as well as a cup of coffee, but I just did my last Peloton ride before I do a real life in-person one in London on Thursday. I'm a little bit scared, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm also sad because I've had a streak going, like a Monday to Friday streak going for like 4 weeks, and I'm gonna have to break that because I won't be working out on Wednesday or Friday this week. But I'm actually really proud of that. I've racked up like 16 hours of workout over the last 30 days because all of those classes, those Mondays to Fridays, have been between 40 and 50 minutes long. So I'm actually really proud of that and my commitment to November. But now that I finished my workout, I'm gonna just drink my coffee, read a chapter of One Dark Window. I am running a little bit behind today. It is dead on 9 and I like to be like showered and ready for the day by 9. But the only thing that I have to do now before I go away on Wednesday is edit this vlog, which to be fair I haven't started, and finish One Dark Window, so I'm not too worried about running like a couple of minutes behind. It'll be fine because I'm still reading and that's still progress. So I have finally cracked the halfway mark in this one. I'm a little bit further than that now actually. I'm 218 pages in, so I have about 175 I think pages to go in this one, but I'm really enjoying it. I think this is currently my favorite book of this video so far. Obviously we do still have half of the book to go, and as we know, like with Divine Rivals, while that absolutely would not have been my favorite of this video, the ending really killed that book for me. But this one is, it's about a girl who is infected, and this is a world where there is this mist, and I think it is the mist that infects people, and when they're infected they are handed over to the king's physicians and they are killed. When you have the infection you also develop magical abilities, and the magical abilities have a degenerative effect on your body. So it's thought as, by some, and by some I mean it's kind of like the king's excuse, it's
thought as a kindness to kill people before they can get to the stage where they start to rapidly degenerate anyway. So our main character is infected and she has gotten away with her life because her father is somebody very important to the king. He was the head of the Destriers, who are like, I guess, the king's guard, and he hid his daughter away when she became infected. And as far as anybody knows, like as far as her family knows, she did not gain any magical abilities from the infection and the fever. However, she has been lying to people. She did in fact gain the ability to absorb cards. Now, the cards are essential to the magic system in this world. When I say cards, they're more like, I guess, tarot cards as opposed to playing cards. And this book actually reminds me of, I guess, atmospherically, it's reminding me a little bit of The Merciless Crow, or is it The Merciful Crow? The Merciful Crow by Margaret Owen. And it's also atmospherically, but also with the card element, reminding me a little bit of The Devouring Grey by Christine Lynn Herman. But these cards all have different abilities, and part of the main character's magical ability is that she can now see the color of cards from, like, if they're hiding in people's pockets, like if they're in the vicinity, she sees them glowing. And this is because the card that she absorbed when she discovered she had magical abilities was the Nightmare card, which has a monster on the face. So she has absorbed the monster and he lives inside her head. So she is desperate to stop people from finding out about this, but she does have this ability because of the monster that she can see other people's cards. Now, in the lore of this world, this is called the Shepherd King series, and it was the Shepherd King that created these cards. And when all of the cards are united and black blood is spilled, so infected blood, then the mist will disappear, meaning the infection will disappear. So this is something the main character wants, because if this happens, then the king will stop hunting down and killing all of the people who are infected, because there will be no infection. And she will also get rid of the monster in her head, because she'll get rid of the infection, which assumedly is carrying the magical ability. So she ends up teaming up with a group of people who are trying to get all of the cards to be able to banish the mist and banish the infection. And they take her in, like, she doesn't seek them out. They find out that she can see the cards, so they take her into their group so she can help them seek the cards that they need to be able to unite them all and banish the infection. She is also, like, quite high in the society as well, because her father was somebody who was super important before he retired. I'm not sure what exactly happened with her mother. I know her mother's not alive, but there is a lot of mystery surrounding her mother that I would be intrigued to find out. And when her mother died, she was sent away to live with her aunt and uncle, or I actually think it was a woman that was close, like one of her mother's very close friends, and her husband. So she is quite high in the society. So some of the characters are like princes and lords, and like her father, like I said, was one of the last captains of the Destriers. This also does feel kind of folkloric. It has a very eerie atmosphere because of the mist and the woods, and I do have, like, I feel like the writing in this one is the best of the 3 books that I've read so far as well, and I think that the atmosphere is very well crafted. So I'm having a very good time with this one, and based on where the plot is going, I would be very surprised if I don't end up really enjoying this by the end. It's not giving me, like, it feels pretty well constructed, pretty well paced. I'm not expecting any, like, dramatic surprises at the end that would, I guess, turn me off this book. I will say once again, like with Belladonna, while there is a romance in here, it's not necessarily doing anything for me. It's not offending me. I'm not mad that it's here, but I'm also not, like, rooting for it, you know? That could be me though, because we did discuss a few months ago how I haven't really been vibing with romance recently. I'm still not really in that zone, although I have read the odd romance that has put me back in that zone a little bit. Generally speaking, romance is not it for me right now, so that could definitely be why. These are YA as well, which could also potentially be why, but I also have noticed that with every book that I've read in this video, the age of the main character increases. All of them are adults. So in the first one, our main character in Divine Rivals is 18, the love interest is 19. I won't tell you anything about the love interest in Belladonna, but the main character in Belladonna is 19, and the main character in One Dark Window is 20, and she said that the love interest is at least a couple of years older than her, so he's like 22, 23, I would say. So yeah, none of these are like kids, everyone's an adult, but I'm just not really vibing with the romances, and I don't think it's taken away from my reading experience. It's just not adding to my reading experience, because that's like an extra dimension obviously that I'm just not really feeling. So it is 11:20
and I am quite proud of myself because I have actually managed to finish One Dark Window tonight. I really enjoyed this book. It is hands down my favourite book from this vlog, and I'm really excited for the sequel. So glad that I decided to pick this up for this vlog because I think the day that I started this vlog potentially was the day that Fairyloot did their sale for the sequel. And obviously, having not read this book, I didn't manage to get a copy, but they sold out so quickly that Fairyloot looked into having them reprinted, and I'm pretty sure that they have confirmed that they are going to be reprinting the sequel, so I will have another chance to get hold of book 2. Now, I love the atmosphere of this one, and I do think that out of everything that I've read this week, the writing in this one was the best. That also lent into the atmosphere, why the atmosphere was so good. I'm somebody who really visualizes things when I read, and I mainly get colour, which is interesting for me because colour isn't something that I normally retain, but it's more of like a colour palette or like a tone, if you will. And so like a cozy fantasy or like a contemporary romance might be in brights in my head. This was a very like grey, desaturated kind of vibe with just like little pops of muted colour. And I think that the folklore edge of this, like it's very Gargoyle King from Riverdale, very The Devouring Grey, also reminds me, like I said, of The Merciful Crow by Margaret Owen. And I think that's actually because of the type of story that it is, because I did find The Merciful Crow to be quite unique while also sticking to a lot of like things that we know and love about YA fantasy. The romance, as I said earlier today, it wasn't taking anything away from my experience, but I wasn't loving it. It did change my mind a little bit, and I started to get behind the romance like the further that I got into this one. I realized earlier when I was telling you guys what this book was about that I forgot to mention that there is actually a magic system associated with the cards that has nothing to do with the infected people, and generally like the nobility and the royalty have these cards and they can access the abilities of them. So each card has a different ability. I think, is it the Black Knight that is owned by the Destriers, and that gives them like more speed and more strength. The Maiden card makes you beautiful, but everything has a price. Every magic ability in here, every card does have a price. For example, the Chalice is like the equivalent of Truth Serum, and the flip side of that, if you use it too much, is that it will poison you. So I really liked that this was a magic system, like a kind of thing that I hadn't really seen before. I also like that we had this flip side of the dark magic as well. The main character, very compelling to follow. A little bit frustrating at points where I feel like communication was necessary and she was holding back a little bit. I also really liked this monster. It reminded me a little bit of like Mr. Kindly in Nevernight, although I would say potentially more nefarious, but I also liked the complex relationship between Elspeth and the monster, where the monster has actually protected her for 11 years but is also a monster. And as you see, like the plot thickens with the monster and why they're there throughout the course of this book, which was really interesting. Based on how this ends, like it had quite an eerie, sinister ending, which I also really enjoyed and is making me super excited for the sequel. It is just a duology. I do typically prefer my series to be a little bit longer, but I'm definitely interested to see how Rachel Gillig wraps this one up and also what she has in store for the future. So this one is my final book for this vlog. It's also my final book for Mixtapeathon. I used this for the 5th prompt, which was to read a book that featured like black magic or curses, which this one very much does. I can't believe I finished Mixtapeathon with 2 days to spare and I've read a book for every prompt. That's 5 books in less than 2 weeks. I don't know how I've managed to read so much this month, because that's definitely not what I intended when I was going into November. I had feelings or misconceptions about some of these books when I was going into them, because I don't really read YA anymore, and I still stand by that. I still stand by that I don't love YA anymore, but this didn't read YA to me, you know. It read a little bit older. This one felt a little bit more new adult. Divine Rivals, on the other hand, I do feel like was quite YA, and I have decided, I think at this point, that I'm not going to be continuing on with that series. I don't think that it was very well executed. I think that the elements there were interesting, and having them together kept me reading the book. Like I said, if it was just one or the other, I think I would have DNF'd it pretty early on. But I think that nothing was seamless. Like, it continued to be jarring having a period romance in a fantasy world, and that never got better. Like, I never once believed that this period romance belonged in this fantasy world. It was very light on the fantasy, which might get better in the sequel, but it almost feels like Rebecca Ross wanted to write a war romance and somebody made her put fantasy in it, because it just it feels out of place, you know? I don't know, but I'm not sold on that one. I did really love this one though, and I did also really like Belladonna, and I'm hoping, because I'm focusing on sequels in December, as I keep saying, I'm hoping that I do get to Belladonna, and also that I can get my hands on the sequel to this when the next time Fairyloot do their sale. But that does wrap up this vlog. It also wraps up my month of subscription boxes, prioritizing them. There are a couple of days left for November, and I was thinking about putting a poll up somewhere, so I had a few ideas of like one final vlog that I could do, but I think based on how overwhelmed I've been recently, I think it's actually just in my best interest for me to just read from my TBR. As much as I want to do something a little bit more interesting, a little bit more themed, I have realized kind of while doing this month, not that I haven't enjoyed it, not that I haven't had a really good time, and I don't regret it at all. I've just kind of, as I've been thinking about transitioning into December, carrying on with the themed vlogs, kind of remembered that I don't make vlogs like this back to back constantly anymore for a reason, and it's because like at the beginning of 2020, was it 2, I like dramatically burnt out, and it was terrible for my mental health. So yeah, I'm just gonna be focusing on my TBR throughout December. I think we're pretty much going to be going into weekly vlogs, reading not just my TBR, I will be reading some sequels and some other stuff as well, but that's going to be my starting point for next week's vlog if you are interested. And by the time this vlog goes up, my TBR will have gone up as well, so you can see what I am planning on reading in December. But thank you guys for sticking with me this month. I do hope you enjoyed the month of subscription box challenge. If you did, please let me know down in the comments. Like I said, while I can't maintain this for longer than a month, I have enjoyed doing it for a month, so if this is something you would maybe like to see in the future, I don't want to promise anything because I do have other obligations when it comes to reading, but I would potentially like to do this a couple of times a year just to keep on top and like keep clearing through and reading through all of the subscription box books that I have. So do stay tuned if you are at all interested in anything that I just said. But aside from that, guys, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you wanna, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.